News, we back again. So I read the book. We're gonna do it a little bit different. We're gonna do it a little different. As you can see, I'm going live with it, so it's not necessarily a video I did somewhere else. YouTube, y'all been good to me. I'm not gonna lie. YouTube, y'all been especially sweet. There's a relationship there that I don't have on every other site, right? And I'm talking to you, who's watching this back, right? I appreciate you. You can be anywhere. YouTube is huge. The world is even bigger. And you could be anywhere in that world, but you right here with me for this moment. And I appreciate that. So I read the book, 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader by John C Maxwell. New York Times bestseller, over 1 million sold. You've probably read it. You've seen it. If you haven't, you might want to. I can't necessarily tell you what to do, what to read, or anything like that. I don't know where you at in your journey. If it's a book you would even care about. But I'm going to tell you what my thoughts on it were. There were 21 indispensable qualities. And I did a few episodes reading and, I did a little bit of studying on the YouTube and on the YouTube. How old do I sound? I did a little bit of studying on the website about the website and how these things work. I'm nervous about reading the book outright on the stream. I'm opening myself up to copyright infringement. I'm opening myself up to copyright strikes. And if you know anything about these YouTube streets, copyright strikes are the feds. You know what I'm saying? You don't want that. You don't want that. You want to avoid that at all costs. So I'm going to be doing a little bit different. I've read it myself. Oh, I'm sorry, bumping on the mic. There we go. Probably sounds a lot better. Sorry if my audio is messed up. Y'all let me know if y'all can hear me down in the comments, but I appreciate you rocking with me. Anyway, I'll tell you my thoughts on the book. I can read, small excerpts and things like that. So that's helpful. That helps me to not feel nervous the whole time. Like, man, somebody's just kind of watching me read. I felt like that might be boring for you all. I do watch these videos back. I'm super, super, analytical. I'm my own biggest critic. So I'm constantly thinking about that. I want it to be a little bit more dynamic. Namely, I want to be able to make eye contact, right? I want to be able to interact. I want you to feel like it's an interactive experience because I really do appreciate you. I know that you're a real life human being out there. Even though I was just reading about dead internet theory recently. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Dead internet theory says that there's not even human beings on the let me say stuff right. So I don't misrepresent. Dead internet theory is that more than half of the internet, majority of the traffic on the internet is no longer human beings, actual flesh and blood, carbon-based human beings. And that is just such an interesting, concept to think. And it really gets deep. Check it out. I would love to read a book about dead internet theory. I have not found any books. I haven't started looking, so don't let me say I haven't found any, but I'm not familiar with that too well. It's just something I dipped my toe into probably this last week, but it is fascinating. So I'm very, very interested. But I did read John C Maxwell, The 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader. It was suggested to me by it was suggested to me by an executive at my job. I very, very much appreciate that. I see why he wanted me to read this. So what I'm going to do is we'll be here for a while. Y'all feel free to pop in, pop out. I'm talking to the live stream right now. 99% of this video's audience is watching on the replay. So I'm just going to continue to talk like you're right here right now because I know that you are. But I'm also not going to ignore my live folks. So I see you. I appreciate you. Hey, what's up? I won't necessarily have my nose all in the camera trying to read the comments, but I will respond to any comments afterwards, right? So I will do that, the whole social media thing. I certainly appreciate that. But I want to just go through this book. I'll go through the chapters. I'm not going to do what's up. I'm not going to do you know who I look? Who do I look like? This is a fun game. And what's interesting is different people tell me I look like different people. So I'm just like a box of melted crayons at this point. I look like this guy. I look like that guy. I take it as a compliment most times. Sometimes folks will try to play you like, you look like, but what you got? What you got? What you got? see, why you gonna do me like that? I just don't understand. My boy, I'm not even gonna repeat the name you said, man. Y'all gonna have to watch the video. Y'all gonna have to check it out for yourself. I don't understand, man. I mean, he's famous in a way. He's infamous. He's definitely infamous. Um, Man, I wasn't expecting that, but I appreciate it. If I remind you of somebody, then it'll stick in your head. You know what I'm saying? At least you can take a joke. Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we gotta laugh. You got no. It's better than who I think I look like, right? When we want to talk about our own insecurities and who the voices in our head tell us, we good, man. I appreciate you. This is exactly what I love. I don't have a name for you all. You know, some of my favorite YouTube channels have like a what they call their tribe. I feel like I'm a little too fresh in the game for that, but that is the energy. So if anybody else is watching, that's the energy. Let's have some fun. Again, we're gonna talk about books. We're gonna talk about analysis, my personal thoughts, but I always say I appreciate you being here. So doesn't make any sense for me to just act like you're not. So I definitely understand that. Ned from Spider-Man. Now, is this the new Spider-Man, the No Way Home, or not? Sorry, no, not. All I know is this the one where Mary Jane don't know who he is. You know what I'm saying? I know that. I know she tried my boy. You know what? Hold on, man. Something ain't really hitting like it's supposed to be hitting, man. I don't have my earring in. I'm right here next to my bed, but that's one of my insecurities again showing. I'm like, I don't have any jewelry on. How will, how will they know I'm cool? You know, mom. Anyway, so the new Spider-Man, is it hitting like that? Is it really going like that? I don't know. All I know is she didn't remember my boy. I see all the little TikTok memes. So I know at one point he was swinging her home and somebody said, hold her harder, Peter, or something like that. Again, I don't know, man, but I rock with Spidey. I almost said I rock with Spidey, but again, I'm not sure where I want to take the channel, but I do want to keep it clean because that's where the paper's at. So I will say that the entire purpose is, you know what I'm saying? We're trying to get to the bread in a very, very long term, long scale way. This is not getting ready to be one of them. Send me a cash app. This isn't that. This isn't that. Now I may get a producer at some point and they may want to take the show in a different direction, but I just love reading. I love reading, man. Folks get on you. At least they got on me as a kid, you know, oh, you think you this or you think you that. I'm like, I just think I like reading, man. You know what I'm saying? I read all the Game of Thrones before the show came on TV and I still loved it. Like it was, bro, it's so dope. It's immersive and it's just the way to grow. So I figure, hey, if I enjoy doing this, I could potentially benefit other people. You don't have to go do all the work. I did it. I did it and I like doing it. Make book suggestions. What you want me to read? You know what I'm saying? Like, now I'm not guaranteeing anything y'all put up in here because I can already tell. I don't know your name yet, but whoever called me the funny one, I'm not taking no book suggestions from the funny one. But the dude who said I look like Ned, I might want to hear what he has to say. The funny one, he gonna stay funny though. He's welcome. You know what I'm saying? Stay, crack another joke. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate you. In real talk, I don't got no shade, but I'm going to be here for a while. I don't know how long this will be, but it'll be at least an hour. So again, feel free to pop in, pop out. I got me a little bit of white wine. I got my lamp going. We good. We chilling. So this book was dope, bro. First of all, the executive that suggested it to me, the way that we met was awesome. My director, so my boss's boss, was gone. I don't know what they were doing. Family vacation, maternity leave, paternity leave, something. Devs in the chat. So that person was gone, right? Highly respected leader. He was gone. This person was filling in for that person. So I had never met them, didn't know them. We made some initiatives together. I suggested some things. He was very, very receptive, which doesn't always happen when you're dealing in corporate America with your higher ups, and certainly not your skip level higher ups. But it was organic. It was unique. He had a very, very down to earth leadership style. He was one of those leaders that were real cool, real casual, and then would just slip in, but I'm going to need, double what you've been putting up just because I believe in you, not because I'm crazy and not because, we do it for the paper, but just because I see something in you, so why don't you go ahead and send me a daily report on what you've been doing? Yeah. Because I rock with you. I know you can handle it. He was that kind of type and I resonate with that. So anyway, he suggested this book to me, John C Maxwell. I don't know that I was super familiar with him, but I think I'm familiar with some of his work. I mean, he is a best-selling author. He's done, all kinds of stuff, but he wrote like a different 21 Qualities kind of book, and I don't remember the exact title. He does mention it a few times in here, but I don't remember exactly. So what I'm going to do today, what we're going to do is I'm just going to go through the chapters. Again, I'm not going to read for anybody that might just be, tapping in. I'm not going to just read straight from the book. I can't do that for monetization and repetitious content reasons. But I'm going to go through these chapters, and I'll just give you the thoughts that came to me, kind of what I took from the book. There's 21 chapters, so it's not going to be too long, but it will be kind of meaty. These conversations I'm hoping will be back and forth again as you all suggest more books. I'll be familiar with what you're reading. You'll be familiar with what I'm reading. We'll make it a thing. Tell your friends to call my friends. We can do this every weekend. Anyway, so let's dive right in. It's nothing too crazy, nothing too hard, and we'll get it going. So chapter 1 was character. Be a piece of the rock. Now there are 2 quotes that he opens every chapter with, so I feel comfortable reading those quotes. It'll kind of shade the conversation. So I'll read the chapter. Obviously I'll tell you the chapter title. I will read the 2 quotes, and then we'll just kind of, we'll kind of chop it up. Man, Dubs in the chat is going crazy. All right, man. Cosmic Ducky, man. I think that's who it is. I certainly appreciate you dropping by. Y'all been the greatest. So chapter 1 is character. The 2 quotes are: leadership is the capacity and will to rally men and women to a common purpose, and the character which inspires confidence. Bernard Montgomery, who was a British field marshal. Never, this is the second quote, never, for the sake of peace and quiet, deny your own experience or convictions. Dag Hammarskjöld, statesman and Nobel Prize winner. Man, character was a good one. It was a great appetizer to what would go on to be a fantastic book. I think when I think about character, it's those moments, like who you are. I think there's kind of 2 scenarios that really, really bring out a person's character. When you don't have much, and when you have more than you need. I think both of those, take what you want with those, fill in the blanks there for yourself. But I think that both of those situations kind of create the circumstances where your character shows through. And character is one of those things that I do feel grows and morphs. I don't think we all just have. I'm hesitant because I'm thinking about like core principles and core values. I do think we have core values in the sense of like a category. But I think the values themselves may change as we grow and evolve. I hate to use that word. I feel like it's so overused, but I do think that your character, like for me, I would just use an example. I think that one of my character traits is my willingness to grow. And to grow, I have to acknowledge that, like, I've never been here before or there before. If I'm reaching upwards, I've never been taller than I am right now. I'm 6'2". I've never been 6'4". My dad is 6'4". Why can't I be 6'4"? But anyway, I've never been there, but I'm still trying to get there, right? And I think that the reason I say it's a character trait is I've fallen on my face. I've failed so many times at so many things. But the keep goingness has been prevalent that whole time. So the keep goingness has had me feeling like, hey, I'm not going out like this. You know what I'm saying? That was tough. That was rough. There's been times where I wanted to quit. I've even got a line in one of my songs. I may reference lines a lot, but I said, I've given up on giving up. I've tried to quit. I truly tried to like, oh, I'm done with this. I'll never do this again. And I just couldn't. Something kept calling me, pulling on me, and that's why I feel like it's a character trait. So I'm very curious what character traits you have. Feel free to drop a character trait down in the comments below. As always, please make sure that you like. That really helps. As one of my big favorite OG content creators always says, it helps with the algorithm. So I certainly appreciate y'all liking it. I see I got a few likes there already. It's not necessarily why I do it, but I do appreciate it when it happens. So let's keep it rocking and rolling. That was character chapter 2, charisma. The first impression can seal the deal. 2 quotes. How can you have charisma? Be more concerned about making others feel good about themselves than you are making them feel good about you. Dan Ryland, executive pastor at 12 Stone Church in Lawrenceville, Georgia. That was good. Second quote. I have yet to find the man, however exalted his station, who did not do better work and put forth greater effort under a spirit of approval than under a spirit of criticism. Charles Schwab, industrialist. Charisma. Man, this chapter sticks with me to this day. I'm so glad. It's probably one of those anchor chapters, and I'm just making that term up on the spot, but it sounded really good, right? What I mean when I say an anchor chapter is, you know what it's like. You read a book or you watch a movie. You don't remember every single line unless it's Step Brothers and you've watched it a million times like me, right? Or Tropic Thunder. But if you're like a normal person, right? You're watching a movie, you see it, it's funny, ha 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 ha, I loved it. We were just talking about Spider-Man a few minutes ago because somebody said I look like Ned. Somebody said I look like a movie star. Y'all believe that? I don't think I look like a movie star, but that's what they said. They said I look like a movie star. Anyway, I think that, see, I lost my thought there. Y'all gotta keep me honest. I was talking about charisma. I was talking about the movies. You watch a movie, you don't remember every line of dialogue, but you remember certain scenes. Sometimes while you're watching the movie, you can tell, oh, I'm going to remember this. Like, you know what I mean? I'm logging this into memory. That's how I feel when I say like an anchor chapter. You're reading the book and you can tell, like, oh, I'm coming back for this later. Uh-huh. Now, don't dog ear the book. Don't let me catch you doing that. Right? That's nasty. Don't do that. But save your space and you want to come back. Anyway, charisma stuck with me because I feel like everybody wants to think of themselves as charismatic. And I don't know that everyone is, in fact, charismatic, but I do think people are far more charismatic than you may think. I think if you give people a chance, if you actually, I heard a saying once, I don't know where I heard it, but it was like there's no one on earth or there's no one alive who, if you really knew their story, that you wouldn't love, you know? And I don't know if they meant it this way, but I internalized it this way. Like, I'm sure that's true if I'm seeing the story from that person's perspective, if that makes sense. I think that everybody, most people, see themselves, life is going by in front of your face, right? And you're watching this, you're watching your thoughts, and you're watching your past, and you're watching your future, and you're thinking, right? That's what keeps us from feeling sometimes, just from being in the moment, all this thinking that we do. And again, I can only speak to me, so don't let me don't let me project on you. Please don't let me project on you. I think that in the midst of all the thinking, we do position ourselves as like, hey, I can see when I run it back how I messed up or how I offended that person or how what I did crossed this person's boundary. But I, at that time, was not aware of that person's boundary. So I think there is something to be said for that. I think it's a distinct delineation, but I think intent creates a distinct delineation in terms of like, hey, did this person cross a boundary absent-mindedly? They didn't know? Or did this guy hop your fence, right? Break into your back door, for lack of a better term. Are these people intentionally encroaching upon your boundaries and your limits, or is this happenstance? Um, you're from Turkey. Wow, that's fantastic. I always love international visitors. I am from America, for sure, for sure. Um, but I have visited, Tanzania. What's the other spot? Ethiopia. Some fantastic places. So I've never been to Turkey. I do not think the closest I've ever been to Turkey is Thanksgiving. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you tapping in. So charisma. We were just talking about charisma. Reading the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader, or should I say, I've already read it. Now I'm kind of discussing it chapter by chapter. I'm on chapter 2, charisma. And what really stuck with me here was it talks about kind of putting other people. I was continuing the story like there's no one alive that you wouldn't love if you knew their story, and then I added the caveat. I was like, but you got to know the story from their perspective, because if other people tell you the story, they may say, man, this guy had my fits. Oh my god. So he's already painted as somebody who's done something wrong, whereas the person telling the story may say, man, this one night I was just like walking around looking for my dog got completely lost, and then I looked up and I was like, oh my god, I'm in this guy's backyard. Now it's kind of like innocent fun. It's like, oh my god, what a quirky story, completely different than like, oh, I woke up in the middle of the night, this guy had hot my fits. Now, if you have a synthesis, obviously, if you could hear both stories and make your own conclusion, but most of the time, that's not what happens. Most of the time, you don't get to hear everybody's side of the story. In fact, it's extremely rare. I'm dealing with that myself because I'm the type of person who wants to talk everything out. I want to hear what you have to say. Then I want to hear what you have to say. Then, if it's okay with you all, I'd like to share. And in the real world, nobody gives up. They got other stuff to do. They're too busy, right? I respect that. I can get that. But when you are dealing in those one-on-one situations and you are having those conversations with people, I try to think about how can I make this person, and I think the charisma chapter has, enriched this thought. How can I make this person feel like I'm hearing the story from the way you're telling it, right? And that's a challenge. That's a challenge sometimes. I think a lot of times, again, we have our own personas. That's who we kind of present, this amalgamation of our different personality traits. And I think that we sometimes respond a lot of times we respond, I think, as opposed to receiving. Like, I just want to receive. I want you to continue sharing. I don't want you to share just until the point where it triggers me to share, right? Now, I just want to, I want to create a safe space where you feel comfortable, giving. And when you put something in, you feel like, yeah, this person appreciates what I'm putting in. And so that's what I think that charisma really comes down to based on the reading of this chapter. It's about making other people. There was an excerpt in here. Let me see. There was a young lady who had talked with two different politicians on different nights. And she said, when somebody asked about her impression of them, she said, quote, when I left the dining room after sitting next to Mr. Gladstone, I thought he was the cleverest man in England. But after sitting next to Mr. Disraeli, I thought I was the cleverest woman in England. And I thought that was so cool. It was like, and everybody, I will say this. I think that charisma is fantastic. I enjoy talking and being around charismatic people, but I will say that you've got to be, I don't want to say cautious, because I think that saying you got to be cautious makes people kind of like dampen that emotion. I'm not saying be wary, just be aware that being charismatic does carry the risk of people feeling like you're being manipulative. Okay. Because some people are not accustomed to people being like that. Like I said, most people are talking to respond. And through societal conditioning, so I'm not putting any blame on these people, we are conditioned to kind of distrust something that breaks the norm. I heard a stat recently that was like 95%. I don't know if it's true. I probably shouldn't have even repeated it. I took statistics, and I know that how repeating a number can make it true to the listener. So please scrap that from your memory. But a large part of what we do is autopilot habits, subconscious, conditioning, things that we just kind of wake up and do. And if that is the case, that also goes for our thoughts. I did read a book called Subconscious, how your mind is secretly controlling you, or something along those lines. I gotta find it. I got some books around here. I'm becoming such an old man. I know I got a book around here somewhere, but charisma. I was saying that you got to be just aware that it may come across as manipulative, and we are conditioned that if something is not normal, just like, hey, what was that sound downstairs? We didn't say, hey, I wonder what that sound was in the middle of the night downstairs. Like we're it makes sense. It's a defense mechanism that makes sense. Hey, that seems unfamiliar. I don't recognize that guy. We're at the barbecue. Who is that? Is that one of y'all's cousins? I don't know that guy. Who is he? I'm not necessarily tripping, but who is he? I need to know who he is, right? Should I be tripping? I'm pre-tripping. You ever heard of pre-diabetic? I'm pre-tripping. You know what I'm saying? I'm not tripping. But who is this dude? You know what I'm saying? So I think you got to be very, very aware that once you start really engaging with people and saying, "Hey, I want you to, share. Go on." People either A, don't want to, which is fine, which is fair, or they're just completely suspicious of what's going on. That's not the norm for them, right? So anyway, enough about charisma. As you could tell, I really enjoyed that chapter. Like I said, it was an anchor chapter. Number 3, chapter 3, commitment. It separates doers from dreamers. 2 quotes. People do not follow uncommitted leaders. Commitment can be displayed in a full range of matters to include the work hours you choose to maintain, how you work to improve your abilities, or what you do for your fellow workers at personal sacrifice. Stephen Gregg, Chairman and CEO of Ethics Corp. Quote number 2. He who has done his best for his own time has lived for all times. Johann von Schiller, a playwright. Man, commitment. Commitment is such a great topic in my mind because it's really nuanced. It is extremely nuanced. I feel like I don't know why this example just came to me, but it did. Like water. If I say, hey, think of water, some of you thought of a glass of water. Some of you might have thought of the ocean. Some of you might have thought of a river. Some of you might have thought of a fire hydrant. Some of you might have thought of rain. Some of you might have thought of ice. Some of you might have thought of the shower. All of you would be correct. Absolutely correct, right? So when we use these words, yes, we all understand, we all comprehend the phonetics of that word. I know when he says water, I recognize that word. But where does the definition in my mental library stick? Where when he says water, oh, he's talking about the scientific properties, H2O. Oh, he's talking about the shower. Oh, he's talking about cleanliness. Oh, he's talking about biology. 80% of my body is water. Like wherever your brain goes to first is you're right. You're completely right. But we go to different places. And I think that commitment is one of those things that we all know the word. When you hear it, you understand the phonetics of it. But I think we go to distinctly different places. I think that for some people, the word commitment brings up automatic feelings of servitude and slavery. I have to swear. If I swear that I'm in, now you're going to take advantage of it, right? And that's a fair thought. I don't know what your lived experience is. I think other people think of commitment as like, I don't quite know how this is going to turn out. I don't know where the path is going to lead, but this is the way we're going, right? Quick example, again, it just popped into my mind, a GPS. When you're using Google Maps, Waze, Apple Maps, whatever you're using, you get on that highway, and let's say you're going you've really never been, you don't know, but you're committed to that app. Again, it's a silly example, but you don't know. But the thing says make this left. I'm gonna make this left. It says take exit 9. I'm gonna take exit 9. I'm committed to getting there. I know that I'm going to this place. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get there. I'll find some different resources on the way. Google Maps might be tripping, might lead me into a traffic jam, and I pull up Waze. But I'm committed to going wherever I'm going. You thought the story was about the app. I'm committed to going wherever I said I was going to go, right? I'm willing to make some changes. I'm willing to change up how I get there. I'm willing to take a different route, but I'm committed to the getting there, okay? I think that chapter was so good because he talks about commitment in the sense of dedication, devotion. Like I'm on I think he talked about Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel and how he committed years of his life. I think he had to lay on his back or he was painting on his back. Excuse me. He was laying on his back and painting for years at a time. I think it said several of his friends. Now I'm talking about the book, The 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader by John C Maxwell. In his book, chapter 3, he's talking about Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel. And he mentions, some of his friends hadn't seen him. Michelangelo's friends hadn't seen him for a while. And it said that he had aged, considerably, noticeably. I think it was like they hadn't seen him in 2 years, but he had aged, by twice that sum. So that's what he was talking about. But the Sistine Chapel, right? Fantastic. He did say, like, somebody had asked him, why are you working so hard and so tirelessly, trying to get every detail correct down to the smallest, corner. And he said, I think the other person said, somebody's not even going to see that. Why are you so focused on getting that done and nobody's even going to see it? And he said, I will know. I'm aware of what I did. And he may not even remember that individual corner, but he remembers his, commitment is my brand. I didn't give up at the baseboards. I didn't just start phoning it in. So that was super cool. I always love stories that take me to, large bodies of architecture, and the Sistine Chapel. I mean, it doesn't really get better than that. So chapter 4, communication. Without it, you travel alone. 2 quotes. Developing excellent communication skills is absolutely essential to effective leadership. The leader must be able to share knowledge and ideas to transmit a sense of urgency and enthusiasm to others. If a leader can't get a message across clearly and motivate others to act on it, then having a message doesn't even matter. That was Gilbert Amelio, President and CEO of National Semiconductor Corp. Quote number 2, educators take something simple and make it complicated. Communicators take something complicated and make it simple. Man, I don't have the time to talk all about my thoughts about communication, but I do think one thing I'm going to be very, vulnerable during these. I am of the belief in my personal life. I've been told this for a long time, but I always fought it. I'm becoming of the mind that I talk too much. Okay. Now, of course, you would never say that because you love the sound of my voice and you appreciate me as a person, as a human being who has thoughts. And I appreciate you for appreciating me. Okay. But some people actually think I talk too much. And I've realized that's actually what led me to this. This is what led me to you. I realized I'm not going to stop talking. So I might as well be speaking with purpose. I might as well be saying what I actually want to say to people who actually want to hear it. There's no reason for me to try to force my thoughts on the people who do not want to hear it. That's cruel. When I think about it, I don't want to hear some of the shit they're talking about, So I got to be fair. I got to be honest. They're not trying to hear all that. But somebody is. So instead of just shutting down and letting depression swallow me like some Venus flytrap, I'm like, why don't I actually go out into the world and say what I want to say and let it resonate with those that it resonates with, right? And I'm learning the more and more that I do that less is more. When you're actually saying what's from your heart, you say much less. You don't have to wrap it up in a bunch of language. You don't have to talk somebody's ear off, You can just say what you have to say. That person can receive it or that person cannot. That is what it is. Communication is super dope. An excerpt from this, he was talking about back in 1865, Abraham Lincoln had to make a decision. He needed to communicate to one of his generals that was out in the field. all of his hopes and dreams waited on this. All of his hopes as leadership as the president rested on this. He was a considerable communicator, and he wrote the following message. Lieutenant General Grant, General Sheridan says, quote, if the thing is pressed, I think that Lee will surrender. Of course, they were fighting against Robert E. Lee. Let the thing be pressed. Abraham Lincoln. Simple. Hey, this guy over here says, I think if we press old boy, he's going to fold. Press old boy. That was it. He didn't have to say a whole bunch. I got to realize I'm in this little, space. I get excited. Ain't no need to be yelling like that. My bad. Let's keep going. Chapter 5. Competence. If you build it, they will come. That's from a movie. Or that line has been used in a movie, but 2 quotes. Here we go. Competence goes beyond words. It's the leader's ability to say it, plan it, and do it in such a way that others know that you know how. In such a way that others know that you know how. And know that they want to follow you. John C Maxwell. Quote number 2. The society which scorns excellence in plumbing because plumbing is a humble activity and tolerates shoddiness in philosophy because it is an exalted activity will have neither good plumbing nor good philosophy. Neither its pipes nor its theories will hold water. John Gardner, author. That's a bar. He did a double entendre. He said neither their pipes, because they hold water, or their theories, because your theory has to hold water. Bars. Anyway, competence. I did do a breakdown on this one. I remember doing a chapter breakdown about competence. So I probably won't even beat that one to death, but I do think competence is important. I think that competence in your area of expertise is what I mentioned before, because that's what's coming to me again. Find your zone of genius, find what you do. I'm just using me right now as an example. Everybody's not going to just sit and talk. They're not going to just read a book and then share their thoughts with the world and hope that, somebody out there resonates with it. They're just not. But I'm the type of person who watches that content. I enjoy when others do that, when other people take the time to put their intellectual efforts to work in a way that we all benefit. I'm not going to lie. I appreciate that, right? So same as I'm not a civic designer, but I do appreciate a good park, right? I'm not a city planner, but I love when they got enough lanes so traffic isn't crazy. I can appreciate when people are operating in their zone of genius, when they are operating in their zone of competency. Mwah, chef's kiss. See why we even say that? Because chefs have their own zone of genius that we recognize on the subconscious level. Stick with me, man. We moving quick, man. We moving quick. Chapter 6, man. We're going to keep it pushing, man. We're going to keep it pushing, man. Courage. One person with courage is a majority. 2 quotes. Courage is rightly esteemed the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees all others. Winston Churchill, British Prime Minister. 2nd quote. Courage is fear that has said its prayers. Karl Barth, Swiss theologian. Y'all know that dude online that takes his glasses and throws them after he eats some food? I think his name is Jordan. I very much appreciate his content. I'm not throwing my glasses. I will do one of these for you. I will, you could check them out a little bit, but I'm not going to throw them across the room for your entertainment. I'm not going to do that. Now, if a nice glasses company out there wants to send me some glasses, I'll be happy to chuck them off across the room, okay? But I'm not doing that. But anyway, the reason I say that is because that quote made me want to do that though. Courage is fear that has said its prayers. I'm not going to go into a whole deep spiritual thing right now, but that hit me deep. That hit me deep. Man, somebody is over here chatting it up. I can't see what you got going. What the fuck is that? Oh, man, I'm trying to be clean. I'm sorry. But see, when I see my boy, I get out of character. You know what I'm saying? What's up, man? How are you living? How are you doing? Could be frying chicken every day instead. I'm not going to lie to you, bro. It's all Chick-fil-A out here, bro. Where I work. I'm not going to mention where I work, but it's like that's the only chicken place they know, bro. It's like, y'all want Chick-fil-A for breakfast? We hit a sales contest. Y'all want Chick-fil-A for lunch? We did this. Oh, my God, you got a blue shirt on today. Here goes some Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, where can I get a bucket, just a bucket, of some popcorn chicken, bro, with a side of the Nashville hot fries, man. Now, I have been laying off the fries, but those that know what I'm talking about. They know. They know. But let me stay on track. But I'm very glad that you're here, man. I can't get out of pocket. You know what I'm saying? It's super glad to see you. Some of the worst people in history were courageous. Exactly. He said some of the worst people. Exactly. You think it didn't take balls to be Hitler? And let me clarify right now, because I can already tell the internet's going to clip that up and chop that up. I might have just went viral for all the wrong reasons. I'm saying that you don't think it takes balls to be an absolute POS. You don't think to be a hateful, spiteful, a leader. I don't care if you're Darth Vader. I'm just using that to say, even if you're fighting for evil or for good, leadership is going to take courage. There are plenty of people who want to do bad things or cheer along when bad things are happening. They are not out corralling the troops, though. They're not the general, right? And another thought is from Martin Luther King, where he was saying something about all that's needed for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing, right? It also takes courage on that other side. You've got to be able to say, "Hey, bro, I'm not going for that. We're not going for that. Nah, bro. Nah, bro. Nah. Courage isn't always boo, 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 beating on your chest. Sometimes it's just a quiet, hey, man, I can't let you talk to the lady like that, man. Hey, bro, I can't have you in here cussing in front of all my customers. You know, I'm trying to run an establishment." You don't have to be all rah to be high courage. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be high volume to be high courage. You don't yeah. What did I say? See, this is how you know it's your good friend, and I need that. Keep me honest. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Martin Luther King Jr. So I was trying to do an excerpt out of this. Here we go. Eleanor Roosevelt acknowledged, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along." Bruh. We're going to talk about story of my life. Whew. How much you change to develop a spirit of courage in your life. That's a great excerpt from chapter 6. Keeping it pushing. And again, I don't know if y'all have ever read this book, John C Maxwell, The 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader. The chapters themselves are pretty quick. You can get through it relatively quickly. I say relatively as to not be judgmental. I don't know how fast you read. I don't care how fast you read. As long as you're reading, you cool with me, big dog. And I'm talking about paper. I will say that. I got love from my Kindle crew. I got love from my ebook homies, okay? I got love for the Audible posse, okay? But I'm talking readers, paper, finger to paper reading. You know what I'm talking about? No judgment if you don't. I'm just telling you who I'm talking to, okay? Now, let's get it here. Chapter 7, discernment. We're a third of the way through. It's 21 chapters, 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. Chapter 7, discernment. Put an end to unsolved mysteries. Two quotes. Smart leaders believe only half of what they hear. Discerning leaders know which half to believe. John C Maxwell. That one was a bar. When I heard it the first time, I was like, whoa, he said that. Second quote. The first rule of holes. When you're in one, stop digging. Molly Ivins, columnist. I'm dealing with that right now in my personal life. I'm not going to necessarily open up about all of that right now. But when you feel like you're in a hole, stop digging. I had to really take that to heart. And I'm going to say something that I don't know if there's even a phrase, but I had to take it to action. I think taking it to heart happens a lot. We hear stuff and think about that meme or the little video. It's from years ago. This little boy was arguing with two little girls. You know, ow, you poked my heart. And I think about that. Like there's a difference between acknowledging the hurt, you know, talking about the things, feeling the feelings. That's one thing. And then there's doing the effing work, right? Man, I wasn't aware that. Think about it like laundry. You know, imagine you and your partner nobody's done the laundry in 3 weeks. It's just piling up. You got dirty stuff here. You guys are literally recycling socks. Like, is this? It's not that funky, right? I'm trying to paint a picture here. Let's say that that's what you're dealing with. And you guys have a conversation like this just is not working. This can't continue like this. And I didn't realize you felt that way. And I wasn't doing the laundry because you weren't doing the laundry. And I thought if you're not going to put in the effort, why should I? And you guys have this beautiful moment and you talk it through and everybody's great. And then the next morning you wake up and nobody does the damn laundry. We have that conversation with ourselves in our own minds. And I am talking still about discernment. I think we've got to be able to discern some of the different voices in our own head, some of the different patterns of thinking. Remember, I was talking about the majority of what we do is on autopilot. That means in that minimal amount of time where you are in the cockpit, you got to steer that thing. You know, you got to be able to check in and say, hey, is this the trajectory that I want this flight to be going? You know, is this where we're trying to head? And you got to make those adjustments and you got to change. I don't think there's anything wrong with autopilot, but you've got to adjust it. You've got to calibrate it is probably the term. Courage implies fear by diction. I feel like it does not. It can, however, impede societal capital, but those are not necessarily anxious at the idea. Yeah, this guy, whoever this guy is, he gets it. You know what I'm saying? I certainly appreciate that. All of your discussions are welcome. There's no right or wrong answer. I love this. Again, I know part of the reason I changed up the dynamic was like I didn't want to just be, I'm just going to read a book to you for 4 hours. I didn't want to do that. I like interacting. I like hearing your thoughts. I really, really am looking forward to, book suggestions so that I can continue on my journey here. So I think we were talking about holes. We were talking about holes. Again, they're going to wreck me. I know the Clippers and the internet folks, they're going to go dumb with this. But it talked about discernment and different quotes. I'll just read one of them to you. I don't need bodyguards. That was Jimmy Hoffa 1 month before his disappearance, right? So semi-famous last words, or famous semi-last words is probably the better way to say that. But he does a fantastic thing. I've gone 7 chapters. I haven't really given you the structure of these chapters. So let me do that. I've told you already that there's 2 quotes. If you're gonna pick up the book, The 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader, by all means do that. But if you just kind of want to enjoy this breakdown, then I figure I should actually break it down. So he does a chapter. He does 2 quotes to begin every chapter. He gives you a blurb. Maybe I would say the meat of the chapter comes next. That's normally about a page, 2.5 pages, maybe at most. Then he gives like a fleshing it out. So he gives you a nice little, I'll call it a piece of meat. The I know if Alex was here, he could give me this language, but the main course of the discussion, right? Then fleshing it out, I would say, is the side dish. He kind of makes some accompanying points. He dives in a little bit deeper. He seasons what's already on the table there. It's already on the plate there. He normally gives you 4 bullet points or numbered kind of. The structure of his points is very, very easy to read, very, very easy to follow along to. Very, very easy to keep up with. Again, I'm saying relatively. Please don't somebody come for me in the comments. I'm not gonna put myself in a situation where I get in trouble, but I'm not aware of every ism and ist and all of that kind of stuff. So if I again stumble along some of your boundaries, then toughen up, pussy. But then he goes on to say, reflecting on it, that's how we can kind of look back on what he just said, how we can kind of tie it all together. Then he does bringing it home. Bringing it home, I think, is my favorite. He kind of concludes all of these things. He really ties the dish together just to keep that culinary framework going. Then he does a daily takeaway. Now, these are not necessarily tasks all the time, and I really do appreciate that. A lot of times they're like a completely different short story. It's a little something else that highlights what he's talking about. Sometimes it's a look back to a character or a person that we've already covered in that chapter. But some of my favorite ones are when it's like, hey, this is a very, very short story about somebody you haven't heard about at all during this chapter or anywhere in this book, but it highlights this point very succinctly. All right, I'm out. there are few of the daily takeaways that are like a little task. Hey, I want you to write this down. Hey, I want you, for the next week, consider how you're blah, 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 blah. Some are those are there, but it's not really a homework kind of book. Some books are very much like, I'm reading through here. Now I'm going to have homework that I'm going to do. I'm going to, build a matrix and write my values in this corner and write my aspirations in that corner, blah, blah, blah. This isn't that kind of book, but there are some really good nuggets. Last thing I'll say, doing this framework, you can read the book at your own speed, obviously, and I encourage you to do that. The chapters are, I would say, meaty enough that if you are the kind of person that really wants to break it down and really wants it to like soak into your subconscious, I do think a good chapter or two a day is a good pace. I think it gives you enough stimulation to feel like, okay, I actually read. I didn't just, I'm not talking about like picking up a flashcard. I read 3 lines today and I just keep it pushing. If you want that, if you want to satiate that feeling, right? And readers know what I'm talking about. I want to read enough to really feel like I'm, working the old brain. But at the same time, everything doesn't need to be a dense, 20-ounce porterhouse in terms of reading. So I think that you really can't go wrong with this book. It's short enough. It is succinct enough that if you're able to read at that consistent clip, that aggressive, and you're able to process it at that clip, by all means, go for it. There's no reason that you can't. But it doesn't read like a novel. So it's not like, I'm reading this book and it's just a page turner. I don't know where the story's going to go next. It's very easy for you to say like, okay, that was that chapter. That was that concept. That was that framework of thought. I'm going to let that percolate for a little bit. Moving on. Chapter 8. We are on to the second third of the book, y'all. We are making it. Focus. The sharper it is, the sharper you are. 2 quotes. This one right here is an anchor. I'm telling you right now, this first quote was a bar. If you chase 2 rabbits, both will escape. Boy, I told you about the throwing the glasses thing. We don't do that here. But the energy lives, okay? Quote number 2, and that quote is unknown. They don't know who said that. Absolute bars, and we don't even know who to give the props to, man. Whoever you are, fallen, forgotten soldier. Thank you. Quote number 2, what people say, what people do, and what they say they do are entirely different things. That was Margaret Mead, anthropologist. Margaret knew what she was talking about a little bit. You know, she knew what she was talking about. This chapter goes on to describe a baseball player. I had never heard of the guy. He's done some fantastic things. Blessings and riches to him and his family. But it talks about pretty much single track mind. Focus, focus, focus. The reason that came so alive for me was this endeavor, again, is another extension of that. When I think about my music career, I'm like, I was reading. I would write down lyrics, then I would go and read them. You can ask my boy, Alex. He really helped me to see, man, you're writing literature. To the person who is receiving this information, it's bigger than rap. It's bigger than just a song, And I thought, you're so right. I want it to be bigger than a song, but I'm taking this like avenue. And I had and have fantastic producers, love them, fantastic studio folks, love them, recording engineers, mastering engineers, my performing rights organizations management team. They've been great. So I'm in no way talking down or besmirching anybody in the music space at all. Don't even come over here with that bullshit, right? But I am saying that for me, I recognize there are some things that I really want to say and want to express, and I'm hiding in music. Music allows me to, hey, if they don't feel what I'm saying, I can blame it on the beat. If they're not really feeling me, I could say, yeah, the studio equipment, I need a better, somebody could give me feedback. And I could say, I could use all these musical things to kind of couch it in my mind as opposed to, hey, well, I disagree with your argument. And that's actually what I wanted, right? People would say, man, that song was so dope, blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, what were your thoughts on it? And they were like, I just told you, like, I thought the song was dope. No, but I'm in like in the second verse when I started talking about the juxtaposition of men and women in the dating scene, and they're like, I mean, it was a dope bar, but it wasn't like triggering at scale these fantastic conversations that I did have. Now, don't get me wrong, it did trigger those conversations. I have made friends, that might even be a misnomer. I've made a friend for sure for life that I know my music helped to kind of, it was the mortar, I would say. I think our values and our meeting each other where we are as we've grown through the years, I think is the foundation of the bricks of our friendship. But the music and creative endeavors certainly is the mortar. I feel comfortable saying that. And I started to again realize that my focus, I think, is on the speaking with purpose. I said that earlier in the video. And I want to do that without sugarcoating it. Now, it's some fantastic sugar. Again, dope, dope, dope beats, fantastic studio equipment. But I'm spending $400 a weekend, to record. I'm spending $500 a month to buy beats or to buy, to re-engineer stuff that I recorded last week. And it was an expensive endeavor. And I'm like, but I still actually don't feel like I'm doing the thing that I want to be doing, though. I don't mind spending the money on a nice tripod, on a fantastic, lamp. And I didn't buy this knowing that I was going to be on video, but it shows up so well on video that I was like, God got me. You know what I'm saying? The universe is conspiring in my favor, right? I believe that. So again, I'm not getting super religious on anybody like that, but I do think that focus is so powerful because it's like one way or the other, you are focused on what you're focused on, if that makes sense. You're focused on either hiding that thing about yourself or you're focused on highlighting that thing about yourself, but you're still focused on that thing about yourself, right? So just, take your thoughts captive. Don't let them take you captive would be my thought there on the topic of focus. He uses a kind of a matrix or a formula where he says focus 70% of your focus on your strengths, which I think is very encouraging. Everybody wants to hear that, right? So it's a feel good feeling. Focus 70% of your focus on your strengths. Focus 25% of your focus on new things. So things you're not necessarily bad or good at. They're brand new. But that's a sizable chunk, right? I mean, that's a fourth of it. 25%. Then he says focus 5% on areas of weakness. So I think that's a big flip, at least for me, on how I was approaching the world. I'm constantly thinking about what I haven't done well. I'm constantly thinking about what I could be doing better. I certainly haven't been spending 70% of my time focusing on my strengths. And I find myself around or talking to or looking at people who I'm like, how do you go? You are doing that. I didn't have that framework, so I didn't know, oh, you're spending 70% of your time. But I could see it like this person isn't letting their insecurities eat them up. And I am not here to inject insecurities on you at all. But I have to acknowledge, like, hey, you don't seem to like be bothered by much. How do you do that? I'm actually very intrigued by that, because I feel sometimes like with no hubris, man, I'm smarter than my outcomes would have me believe. Based on my own metric of judgment, some of my outcomes don't lead me to believe I'm as intelligent as I believe that I am, right? If I were actually as helpful to others, I would have some level of buy-in to my overall goals, right? Again, when I think about like the music, there were times where I was recognizing like, man, I'm getting a lot of buy-in from people, but I didn't want, I had a song way back called Don't Want to Dance. It was like parody. One of my most favorite songs. I had another song called Baby. Parody. One of my most popular songs. And the songs I was like, man, I really want the people to be listening. I did learn eventually how to say what I wanted to say in a way that people wanted to hear it. So I did appreciate that feedback and the ability to grow from that. But again, the overarching focus for me was I don't want to just make something that's going to make you dance. I want to make something that's going to make you think. And I had to realize I'm not doing nobody's doing me wrong because I chose a medium. When you think about music in general is an escape or an accent at best, right? And by I say, I'm going to break both of those down. I think an escape in the terms of like I escape the fact that I'm sitting in traffic. You know how music can be. Man, I'm in the gym. I hear people grunting and groaning and stuff slamming all around. I want to hear my music. It helps me to kind of escape slightly because I'm still here, I'm still in the mix, but it helps me to kind of escape what I got going on. Or accent. Of course, I can still hear the people in the gym. I still want to hear coach, right? I still want to hear what's going on. I just want to accent what I'm doing. I just want to accent what I got going on. I don't have any problem with that. But I don't think many people say, you know what? I want my political views challenged. Throw on that slide the deuce. You know what? I could go for some character development. You guys want some character development? Let's put on that slide the deuce and let him preach to us over a 16 bar beat. Bruh, come on. These are my conversations with myself. Nobody wants to hear your grandiose vision for the world if you're hiding it. If you're hiding it in, no, I'm just trying to make this little song, but oh, you didn't go in and draw out all this deep extrapolation of knowledge that I tried to secretly hide in there. Who do you think you are? The Bohemians? Who do you, like, seriously, you're watching too much Alex Jones. These are my self conversations. You're not a secret society unto yourself where you can bury symbolism in the come on, man. It doesn't work like that, man. And I appreciate those things, though. I appreciate learning and reading and stuff like that. And I wanted to share what I was reading and what I was ingesting. But music may not have been the absolute best medium to do that. And so as opposed to now letting this false sense of failure creep up on me, because as a rapper, you're supposed to be this and you're supposed to be that. And it's like, well, I never really was doing that for that reason anyway. So I'm not going to grow into these insecurities. Certainly not. I'd rather refocus what I actually want to be doing and apply myself to those endeavors. One of those endeavors just so happens to be reading, and the other one is talking. So why don't I just talk about what I read? You know what I'm saying? Basic stuff. But let's keep it pushing. I certainly appreciate y'all tuning in. We are making some fantastic progress. I'm making sure I don't tip over my cup. Chapter 9, Generosity. Your candle loses nothing when it lights another. 2 quotes. No person was ever honored for what he received. Honor has been the reward for what he gave. Calvin Coolidge, American president. Number 2, giving is the highest level of living. John C Maxwell. When I think of the greatest leaders in my life personally, they are people who give endlessly. They give of their time, they give of their efforts, they give of their resources. Now, they don't always give their everything to everyone, but they are constantly in a state of giving. For example, I've got a friend, my best friend in the world. I've seen this guy work. And that's a misnomer because I wasn't there the whole time to see him work. But I've seen this guy go to work, right? I know that he's working hours, 10, 12, 13 sometimes, right? Then he will leave that leadership capacity and then go and be a leader to his partner, right? His woman. I don't in any way want to insinuate that my boy has a partner, right? He's got a lady. And he will go operate in the leadership capacity there. And what I've noticed just from being his homeboy for years, he leads with service. He is constantly like, hey, how can I help you? If I'm your leader, if I'm your boss, if I'm your husband, if I'm your dad, if I'm your friend, how can I empower you to do this yourself and even better, right? So there's a level there that I certainly can respect, because I think you've got to be generous with your time, generous with your efforts, generous with your intellect to really serve a purpose. If you're the smartest guy ever, but no one... I don't know why Dr. Doom is coming to my mind, but probably because, Marvel's on that whole marketing push. But anyway, I just think about a villain. A villain serves a purpose, even if that is just in giving the hero purpose. Spider-Man was doing what with his time? Amateur wrestling? Bare knuckle boxing? You know what I'm saying? I don't know what he was doing. You guys know more Spider-Man lore than me, but these glasses ain't no joke. I've read a comic book a time or two, right? The guy was doing like roundabout stuff. Then certain villains showed up and Spidey was like, oh, this is a job for me. You know what I'm saying? This calls on me. So even, and we were talking about villains and courage earlier, just because you're courageous doesn't mean you're noble, doesn't mean you're honorary, doesn't mean you're doing good, and good is subjective, right? So you have to be generous and outgoing with your efforts because you will absolutely trigger opposition. And sometimes that is what is needed. The opposition is what is needed for a comparison to take place. Hey, my friend over here is willing to put in 12, 13-hour days. My other friend over here, who I also love dearly, he's just not. He's not built like that. He's not going to do it. You'd have to twist his arm to get him to put in an 8-hour day, right? That kind of gives me the opportunity to compare and contrast. Well, what is this person's outcomes? Okay, all right. Now, of course, I got to put in what are these person's inputs? What are they? But all these different things are, but this is my mental matrix. But I think that you are helping. Those two people are both, them living their own life is helping me. They're helping me make a compare and contrast on decisions I'm going to make in my own life. So we're not even always aware of what we are giving and how that's impacting the people that are receiving it. We don't know who's going to say, man, I was watching this video and this dude said X, Y, and Z, right? I can't tell you literally countless YouTube videos at this point that have influenced my way of thinking because they're human to human connections. We're just using these phones or these computers or these laptops or these tablets or whatever whatever your screen device is, it's just a medium for us to connect. And as long as humans are here, humans are going to want to connect and they're going to need to connect. So be generous with your time. Be generous with what you got. Be generous with your, maybe not so generous with your opinions. Everybody's got an opinion, but with your actual endeavors and your, what you can actually do. And the reason I'm saying that is this is my personal take. He doesn't say this in the book, but I don't know that sharing your opinion. I think about like restaurant reviews. Yes, those are societally agreed upon opinions. I am seeking out your opinion so that I can make a judgment. But I think that social media, I'm not here to demonize social media as I literally use it myself, but I think that again, we've got to be aware, focus. I think that was chapter 8. Don't let the fact that you can have an opinion on everything force you to have an opinion on everything because that can distract you. Trying to formulate an opinion, trying to have a 2 cents. If you give everything your 2 cents, your pocket will be empty sooner rather than later, right? I've never heard that before, but I know you know what I mean. So let's keep it pushing. He gives you again some fantastic breakdowns. He talks about develop the habit of giving, right? Going back to habits, the things that are on autopilot. If you just make this a part of who you are, part of your character, we talked about that earlier. Some of these things they take on a life of their own, and you don't have to. It's not this big cognitive load. It just becomes who you are. It becomes your outputs. Chapter 10, initiative. You won't leave home without it. 2 quotes. Success seems to be connected with action. Successful people keep moving. They make mistakes, but they don't quit. Conrad Hilton, hotel executive. I wonder if he was the founder, but it didn't say he was the founder, so he's probably a family member of some sort. Quote number 2. Of all the things a leader should fear, complacency should head the list. John C. Maxwell. He was getting crazy with the quotes. I mean, John himself, he was like, hey, this is my book. I can quote myself. He was letting them fly. But this chapter right here in particular got me in trouble. It was a fantastic chapter. It was an anchor chapter. It got me feeling myself, and I took the initiative to do something at the time that felt very non-dangerous. That turned out to be an absolute minefield. I wish I never did that thing. The person that I was involved, and this isn't what you guys may be thinking. I'm thinking about, but it was impactful. So it just stuck with me. Initiative. You got to be careful. Discernment. You got to use all these things like, what was the guy's Earth, water, fire, Captain Planet? He was my dude. Captain Planet was my guy. And it was a good framework because sometimes we learn about concepts and we forget. Thanos is probably a better reference. I'm aging myself, but Thanos is probably a better reference. The Moon Stones, the Power Stones. You know what I'm trying to say. When he put them in the gauntlet and they were all able to work together, they were a completely different entity than them by themselves, right? And I think that initiative is important. I don't think you can get anywhere without it. I think it is better to, when we talk about being cautious, I think it's better to have some egg on your face because you took initiative than to have some regret in your heart because you didn't. That's my personal take. But it definitely helped me embarrass myself. Let's say that. I took some initiative on something and it certainly helped me embarrass myself. So let's move on. Listening, chapter 11, listening. To connect with their hearts, use your ears. Two quotes. The ear of the leader must ring with the voices of the people. Woodrow Wilson, American president. Quote number 2. A good leader encourages followers to tell him what he needs to know, not what he wants to hear. John C Maxwell. I told y'all, he gonna get them quotes in. He said, I made the beat too. You know what I'm saying? He said, hey, listen, he big crit with it. I wrote the book, I quoted in the book, published the book. You know what I'm saying? Johnny Maxwell, baby, ask about me. I don't know if he's ever called himself Johnny Maxwell, but listening is super, super important. And I think I was touching on this to a degree earlier, talking about charisma and making people feel heard. I think charisma is the kind of how you position back what you heard, but I think that it's a compound movement internally. I think it takes a great deal of listening and then appreciating what you've heard, actually ruminating on it, being able to spit it back out. That creates the charisma equation. But I think listening is so important, and I think you can save yourself a lot of conversation. Again, going back to my own realization that I think in my personal life I talk too much. I think a lot of conversation is unprocessed or inadequately processed thoughts or feelings. If you throw something, you're trying to get rid of food product, right? You put it in the garbage disposal, it doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't, chop it all the way up. You got to take it out. You got to take it out of there. You got to put it in the bag. You take it out of there, then you want to throw it in the trash. But let's just say it's, old chicken or something like that. You don't want to just throw it in the bottom of your trash can because that's going to get foul very fast, faster than you're going to fill up that trash can, right? So it's going to, funk up your kitchen. So what do? You got to put the chicken in a Ziploc bag, maybe 2 Ziploc bags, and then throw it in the trash can, right? Just making this up. That's what sometimes conversations are. This is just, we're trying to get to the same issue. We're trying to get rid of this negative emotion, or we're trying to highlight this thing. The garbage disposal didn't work. So now we're talking about it again. Now okay, well, we really want to just get it out of here, but we can't just throw it in the trash can because then that might, we can't just sweep it under the rug. We can't just blow past it because then it might actually start to create other issues in our relationship. It might start to become funky before it's time, right? Again, I'm kind of mixing the analogies here, but so we're talking about things because it just hadn't been processed adequately. And nobody, I think, is at fault here. I put it in the garbage disposal. I thought that the garbage disposal would work. I may not have understood how to communicate with this other person adequately enough. So I didn't do it maliciously, but now we find ourselves having to have more and more conversation. And I think that taking the time internally to really listen helps to say, oh, okay, so this is a drumstick. So there's a bone in there. Okay. You never said, don't put this in the garbage disposal, but you did say there was a bone in there. And I was able to listen, hear that, and say, okay, so this is not something I should put in the garbage disposal. Got it. It's not about us having more and more conversation. Well, you never told me that. Let's have a conversation where you formally tell me that. Then you need to formally tell me why. Then I want the history of who was the first person to put a chicken bone in the garbage disposal and why haven't they updated garbage disposals in the past 20 years. I'm off on this whole thing and you're becoming turned off by the whole interaction, right? So learning to listen more, I think, helps you to speak less, and that's the journey that I'm on. So that's my take on it. He does talk about listening. Good followers, good leaders have to know what their followers are actually seeking, what they're actually wanting out of that experience. It is a relationship, leader to follower, manager to employee, CEO to shareholders. It's probably shareholders to CEO, but there is a relationship to be had there. Um, Chapter 12. We are getting through this thing. Let me see. Let me see. I'm getting some interaction. I'm all about the interactions. Art versus entertainment. Absolutely, absolutely. Conversations are different than people waiting for. See with the glasses. Listening to respond and listening to receive. I don't know where that language came from. It just came to me today, but I feel like responding is like giving back. Oh, I can't wait till it's my turn. I'm listening until you say something that triggers me and my thoughts and my feelings, and I can share. And then there's like listening to receive, listening to receive. So for sure. Also, successful people do not dwell on problems; they just seek the solution. Exactly. I was speaking about that earlier. Like sometimes you see people and they're like just so solution oriented that you're like, so you don't even see those problems? You know what I'm saying? It's like that is the actual answer. Yes. Like I'm so focused on the solution. I'm just going to make it happen and learn along the way. But often your ego is what stands in the way of actually hearing someone. Yes, again, I think that we're subconsciously defending some people. Maybe I'm just projecting again. I don't want to project on others, but I certainly think there's a level of defense that we have, especially in this hyper judgmental, social media landscape. We're constantly aware of somebody, any thought that I may be at the Applebee's and I'm just a regular guy. I, pick my nose for a second, wipe it off on a napkin. I might get up and go to the bathroom, wash my hands after that because I think it's nasty. Oh my God, I just picked my nose. But somebody across the restaurant caught me on camera. They got me all on Instagram and Twitter. Like I made this up. This is not a real story, but I'm saying like your every moment can turn into content. Somebody's got a whole think piece about picking your nose in the restaurant. Like it just becomes this thing. You've lost your kids, your wife, and your job, because you were a human being. And I think that kind of creates this hyper vigilant, low level but hyper constant state of surveillance, right? And so that sticks with us. Let's see. Best practices in listening is simply paraphrasing what you heard in your own words. Follow up with clarification. I would agree. You'd be surprised though, man. I was saying earlier, like some people have not spent much time being listened to and heard. That when you actually seek to give them the floor to like share more or expand, they either don't know how, they shut down, or they're like actually upset with you. Like I said. Okay, man, you didn't say much. I'd be mad sometimes. And what makes you angry, bro? Everything's not a therapy session, bro. You shouldn't reserve a therapy. I feel personally, this is my thought. You should be able to answer a question, even if it shades into philosophical, even if it shades into introspective. That shouldn't be. Maybe I'm judging because I'm saying what should and shouldn't be for other people. But if we're friends and I say, hey man, what are your thoughts on baseball? Hey bro, I'm not a professional athlete. Nobody says that, right? We talk back and forth left and right about our thoughts on things. I'm asking you your thoughts on you. Why is that so off limits? Why is that so? I'm just aware of it. I'm not judging. I'm just becoming aware. People don't want to talk about people. You know what I mean? They want to talk about people. People want to talk about people, but people don't want to talk about people. Right? Me and you talking about me and you. Oh my God, the worst. But me and you can talk about him and her. Oh my God, until the sun comes up. Right? Anyway, did I get that right? Are you telling me this because of? I love the clarifying questions. If leadership is discerning what's the truth or not, we often involve our own ego no matter the feedback. No pushback from me there. Absolutely right. If leadership is discerning what's the truth, which is part of my problem with Johnny Okay. I love it. I love it. It's part of his problem with Johnny Maxwell. Do tell. I love the opinions. Like I said, I think this is my first introduction to actually reading his work. I may have heard some of his other book titles, which is part of my problem. But it's also courageous to say, my God, this guy right here. It's also courageous to say I don't have an opinion on. A practice I've been getting into the habit of is saying I wouldn't want to give you the wrong information, so I'm going to say I don't know. That's the effing truth. I don't know. And I used to want the ego part of me wants to be right so bad. And I was so insecure that I didn't know. Again, going back to the vanity that there was some world in which I could ever know everything that there is to know. So I feel some way that I don't know the answer to your question to solve your problem in your life, but I commit to you, I'll go find the answer. And I thought that was leadership. I thought that was helping. And not to say, again, going back to generosity, hey, if I have the answer, I'm absolutely willing to give my knowledge, willing to give my expertise, willing to give my effort to helping you find that solution. That is different than taking on your need for the answer. That is different. And that took me a long time to learn. I'm dumber than I sound. Right? So it took me a long time to get that, but it is still a lesson worth learning, right? Let's keep it moving. This is fantastic stuff. But we are at chapter 12. So passion. And we're doing 21 chapters, so we're already, more than halfway through this thing. Passion. Take this life and love it. 2 quotes. When a leader reaches out in passion, he is usually met with an answering passion. John C Maxwell. Number 2. Anyone can dabble, but once you've made that commitment, your blood has that particular thing in it, and it's very hard for people to stop you. That was by Bill Cosby. And as I was reading that, I just wondered, that quote in today's context, given what we have heard about William Cosby, I don't know if it aged well. I'm going to leave it at that. So, moving on into passion. I agree. Passion is so important. Passion is it's got to be palpable. It's got to be daily, is what I would say. True passion, I think, is a daily expenditure of effort, mental resources, physical resources, financial resources. Passion isn't always motivation. There are many, many days where I am not motivated to do something, but I am passionate about it, so therefore I do it. I think passion, to kind of say that differently, is that gap between your desire and your discipline. Yeah. And you've got to have passion. I think it's kind of like the smaller that gap, the higher the passion, if that makes sense to you. So this is one of those chapters where how do you miss? You could talk about anybody. He talks about Papa John. He mentions the guy by name. And I didn't know this about the guy. He truly lives and breathes this stuff. He's one of those bosses that travels around. Think about that show, Undercover Boss. I don't know why, because he doesn't go undercover, but he travels around. He goes to his different, franchises and things like that. And he will work the line if they need it. He'll fold boxes if they need it. I'm talking about the Papa John's guy. He'll do all of that, right? And he doesn't make it a show. He doesn't have to bring in a camera to show that he's doing it all the time. That's just, his actual passion is seeing his stores grow and be the best that they can be. I just think that's dope. I think that's dope, and it definitely resonates because I've worked for people like that, and I've worked for people who are distinctly not like that. So going back to that compare and contrast again. And so that's chapter 12, passion. It's coming out of John C Maxwell's book, The 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader, becoming the person others will want to follow. So let's see. That was chapter 12, passion. 13, positive attitude. If you can believe it, if you believe you can. Quite like that, straight like that. You know what I'm saying? 2 quotes.
The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitude of mind. That was William James, a psychologist. I wish he had put a date right there just because that felt very time specific, the context of the society and just like where they were. I would be very curious, like what breakthrough had happened in this time. Anyway, quote number 2: a successful man is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks others have thrown at him. David Brinkley, television journalist. I mean, that about sums it up right there, right? But he definitely talks about his opening is more than perspiration and inspiration. You've got to have that positive attitude, even if it's. I've heard people kind of use. I would say the easiest way to get into that mindset, but it's very dangerous. Rookie level, the beginner level, positive thinking is it could be worse. It's easy, could be worse. Take 2 seconds, think to yourself, how could this situation be worse? Right? Feel that for just a moment. Man, I live in this tiny apartment, and I don't feel this, I'm just using an example. Man, I feel in this tiny apartment. I live in this tiny apartment. Would it be worse to live in an even smaller apartment? Yes. Would it be worse to not have anywhere to call your home? Yes. Would it be worse to have a larger apartment but be terrified because you don't actually make enough money to like afford that, so you're just constantly on edge, you're constantly anxious? Would that actually be better, right? That's a very easy practice. I think, how could this be worse or could this be worse? Very, very easy to kind of kickstart your brain into the positive thinking side. The reason I say kickstart is like do it real quick. Don't dwell on how it could be worse, because I feel that many times that's depression. I'm just sitting here thinking about how bad it could be, how bad it might be tomorrow, and I'm not saying so it's a slippery slope. I certainly don't think it's an advanced technique. I don't think you should just sit and dwell forever on how could things be worse than they are right now. I think you will absolutely attract worse things if you do that. But I think it's fair to it's not about fair. I think it's a good beginner level practice to real miss, in my opinion. I'm not sure what that means. Um, maybe I need to read the comments before. Hold on. Social capital. Okay. Perhaps if confidence is high, then the risk is not fear, it is social capital. Johnny Maxwell should have stated here that the 25% of your time dedicated to new things is how you find said passion. That's good. That's good. Too often these self-help books tell you to care but not how to find what you actually care about. Bro, I said that earlier and I wasn't like making a critique on his book, but I agree. Self-help in general, I was using language like we take a lot of things to heart, but we don't take a lot of things to action. It's different to read a book. Oh my God, that was so deep. Oh, what? My mind is blown. And then we go right back and do whatever we was just doing. That you got to be, and that's what I was talking about. Passion. Passion is not necessarily the same as motivation. You can read a book and be all motivated. That's different than being passionate about bringing new results into your life. That's different than being passionate about the outcomes that you desire for yourself. I still don't know what real miss means. I wanna hear you though. Real miss. Oh, real miss because he didn't say. Okay, you see what I'm saying? See how it all comes together? It's cohesive. It's congealing. It's congealing. Anyway, that was positive attitude. I gave my little 2 cents on that. We're gonna keep it pushing. 14. That's what 2/3 of the way through. You know what I'm saying? We cooking, man. We cooking. 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. I am not sponsored by Johnny Maxwell. I'm not sponsored by Audible. Nobody's paying me to tell you about this book. We should change that though. Just saying, if you out there listening in YouTube land. Chapter 14, problem solving. You can't let your problems be a problem. 2 quotes. You can measure a leader by the problem he tackles. He always looks for ones his own size. John C Maxwell. Boy, I'm telling you, he was putting them quotes up in here, man. I feel like the whole book is a quote by him. I just thought it just tickled me. I don't know that I have a thought positive or negative. It just tickled me that he was the guy he kept quoting. Quote number 2. The measure of success is not whether you have a tough problem to deal with, but whether it is the same problem you had last year. John Foster Dulles, former Secretary of State. Well said. Well said. So many times, and I'm certainly not going to act like I'm Mr. Perfect and I've never re-wrestled with a problem. But those are the moments where I was saying something earlier about being very honest with yourself. I had to acknowledge, wait. Yeah, I'm wrestling. I got fighting off this demon. I'm fighting off this demon, this insecurity, this blah, blah, blah. But I recognize you. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you go to work day after day, you sometimes see people on the train, on the bus. Sometimes you'll see people in traffic. You'll look over. It's like, I've seen this guy before, maybe only in traffic. But you got to live near me. I figured that out because I always see you at this stop sign. And you got to work near me too. Because I always see you. I'm all the way across town now at my job, but I still be seeing you. Something about our lives is kind of similar, whether or not we're intending that or not. I think you got to have those same serendipitous realizations with yourself. You know what? I recognize that insecurity. No, where do I know that fear from? I know, because I saw you on the other side of 15. I saw you on the other side of this relationship. I remember. We're not friends. I don't spend every waking moment with you. You haven't blossomed into a fear, but I remember you, insecurity. Where have I seen you at? And I think it's on you to acknowledge those and root them out before they grow into full-blown, oh my God, I've got these habits now. They were fears that I didn't acknowledge. Then I developed these habits to help me cope with these fears that I never acknowledged. And they became fears because they were insecurities that I didn't acknowledge. So then they grew into a full-blown, and I had to realize myself, again, I'm talking too much. I don't have this much time to just be out pontificating with people trying to show them all my cool vocabulary words. I have actual work I need to do. I've said enough. So that is that chapter. Problem solving is huge. I think it takes focus. I think this chapter, I do think, like I said, I like how he built this book. He talks about how character is the foundation and it's everything else is built upon it. He didn't then go on to say that these are in chronological order for any reason. He doesn't at any time say that one is more important than the other. But I think that the implication, at least what I received from that, hey, this is the foundation, it led me to read it as a building upon. And I do find that to be helpful, at least for me. So that's my thought on that. The problem solving is chapter 14. He talks about bringing it home. I do love this. He gives a good acronym. TEACH. Time, exposure, assistance, creativity, and then HIT it. So time, spend time to discover the real issue. All of this is a framework for how to problem solve. So time, spend time to discover the real issue. Exposure, find out what others have done. Assistance, have your team study all the angles. Sometimes you are your team, right? So take everything what I'm saying and be able to apply what I'm saying. Keep up. Frankly, I'm not going to break everything down because I don't think you're dumb. Creativity, brainstorm multiple solutions and then hit it. Implement the new best solution. I like that. Nice little acronym. I also graduated from a program that was called the TEACH program. That was like technical. Oh my God, I should know it. Technical education and career horizons. So that stood out to me immediately because, it was an acronym. Oh, I just learned that acronym, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, chapter 15, relationships. Good stuff here. If you get along, they'll go along. 2 quotes. The most important single ingredient in the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. Theodore Roosevelt, American president. Quote number 2. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Y'all want to guess? Y'all want to guess who made that quote? Y'all just take a wild guess. Just take a guess. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That was John C Maxwell. You're right. You're totally right. Reading is supposed to be just taking on new ideas. I feel you. Was it Marcus Aurelius who was like the measure of a man, or the measure of intelligence is being able to hold an idea or consider an idea without like taking ownership of it? I think that's so important. It's so important. And we live in such a, again, I was talking about this heightened level of a judgment that we all, some of us are not tuned into it, so I'm not saying that, but it still permeates. Some of us are not listening to AM radio right now, but the radio waves are still there. And I'm saying that there's this fear of judgment and this debate culture. Everybody wants to debate, or I have to disagree with you. I don't even want to have a conversation unless I firmly disagree, right? I feel slightly differently about that. I don't even interact with that post. But the one that I can't stand, people who talk like that, they get the most interaction, right? The billionaires are doing what billionaires do. I'm not here to pass judgment on the algorithms. I'm just saying that I've got to spend more time and effort finding people who can introduce new ideas to me without feeling like they have to force it on me, or I have to accept it just because they're presenting it, and vice versa. I don't want, because I presented an idea, for that to be taken as I forced it on someone or I shoved this idea down your throat because I was able to see how I'm already getting defensive. I don't want to be accused of manipulation or trying to shove an idea down your throat because I adequately expounded on it, or because I spoke about what appeals to me about this framework. Um, I think that we have such a high opinion, low information matrix going on, that to disagree with someone or to say anything that is like contradictory to what they have said gets taken as you're contradictory to me, the person. I so identify with my ideas and thoughts that to disagree with my idea is to fundamentally is to fundamentally disagree with and reject me as a person. And my reaction to your disagreeing with my argument is really one, my reaction is befitting a person who has rejected my humanity, my very essence. And I just, we use the term triggered, but even then I think that word has become so overused and watered down that it's like, you should not be that triggered. Did my microphone die? Now you know you talk too much when you didn't talk to your microphone out. Give me just a second. This one you need to like have some music queued up or something. You know what I mean? I don't know, but I really, really hope it's not echoing. How's my audio? Let me ask. I got this. You got live people you interacting. How's my audio? I haven't. You would have already told me, bro. No way, my boy would have me out here looking like I'm. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm foolish. So, relationships, chapter 15, relationships. We already talked about that. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think all of these things. I was talking about initiative. I kind of joked about how it got me in trouble. I will say that was in regard to relationships. Um, I think relationships as well, though, is one of those things that you can't treat it too precarious, or it becomes precarious. You know, it's like, I'll use a different example because a coworker showed me a fantastic video of his little kid. He's just a few months old, and he was going down the slide. He, fell down the slide. Wasn't the smoothest slide in the world. Fell, smacked his head on the slide itself. And it was one of those situations where it was like, if you guys laugh, the kid will laugh. If you guys go, oh, the kid will, oh, that's how I should respond, and he'll start crying. Both of which are correct. He's responding to the environment. And I just think that it's so important in relationships to be mindful of, in that analogy, the face that you make. Do you treat scenarios that come up in your relationships like, oh no, we should freak out about this. This is the moment where we cry. Or is it a scenario where you're like, that was crazy, right? We got through that, right? Man, imagine what else we'll get through, right? Again, that's a entry level thought. Don't spend too much time thinking about all the other things that could have gone wrong, right? Don't take it too far. But yeah, relationships are awesome. He gives a few tips here that I'll just kind of hit you with rapid fire. People like to feel special, so sincerely compliment them. People desire direction, so navigate for them. And this is people who are under your leadership. Okay, I'm not talking about the vision of the anointed, as Thomas Sowell would talk about. I'm not talking about an educated elitist class who believes that they know what is best for the everyman. I'm certainly not talking about that. I'm talking about people who are under your leadership, knowingly and willingly. They desire direction, so navigate for them. They are selfish, so speak to their needs first. They want success, so help them win. Create value. Everybody says that now, especially if you're in the Gary Vee space. But you really do got to create value, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that if it's real true value. Not how can I convince this person that I'm creating value so that they'll give me money. I think that will inevitably wear anyone out. You know, anytime you're wearing that mask, it's going to exhaust you. So that's my take on it. But relationships are super important. Find out how you can, you know, be of value in those relationships. I think that will serve you very, very well. Chapter 16, responsibility. If you won't carry the ball, you can't lead the team. Two quotes. Success on any major scale requires you to accept responsibility. In the final analysis, the one quality that all successful people have is the ability to take on responsibility. Michael Korda, editor-in-chief of Simon & Schuster. At this point, I think you can guess who the second quote is by, but he says, a leader can give up anything except final responsibility. I know that's right. I heard that. He talks about the Alamo in this chapter. Now, I am not, too big on giving up my location and all that stuff, especially in these dirty, dirty internet streets. But I'm in Texas. I love Texas. I've wanted to live in Texas since I was a little boy, and now I do. He talks about the Alamo. I have visited the Alamo. It is really cool. He shares a story in here about the people that, frankly, died. They all died. But they stood their ground. They took responsibility. It was their responsibility. One of the key people that he talks about is there was a scout or somebody that was sent out from the camp, like early. So the bad guy, sorry, that was insensitive. The opposing forces are encroaching, and the soldiers that are in the Alamo, they send out a scout, I think, to go get some additional help. Long story short, when he gets to the outpost or wherever he's trying to get, no help is coming. It's like they're too far outnumbered, or hey, they would never get there in time. It was something that was like, ain't no help coming. But now, mind you, the scout is already at this outpost. He's not there anymore where these guys are getting ready to get invaded. But he knows it's his responsibility to report back. So even though he is here and he knows well, hey, help is not coming. Nobody's coming. If I go back, we'll die. He knows that more than anybody. But he also has a responsibility to get back and provide his message, right? I think that was a dope story. It definitely is one of those stories that sticks with you, makes you ask, like, whoa, would I do that? Would I do that? Of course, everybody wants to say, yeah, hell yeah, I would, bro. Honor, bro. But again, you know yourself. Chapter 17, security. Competence never compensates for insecurity. Two quotes. He mixes it up this time, though. John C Maxwell is the first quote, just to give you that. You can't lead people if you need people. I don't know how that fits in with other things that we've been hearing so far. Relationship, competency, charisma, all of those things involve another person in some form or fashion. So when he talked about security, I was open to hear. I was like, I want to hear where you're going with this because I don't know that I follow. Second quote, no man will make a great leader who wants to do it all by himself or get the credit for doing it. See, that was Andrew Carnegie, Industrialist. I feel like those two quotes themselves are to a degree contradictory. Please chime in if I'm not, if I'm missing something. But the first one is like, you can't lead people if you need people. Then the second one is like, hey man, you can't make it if you're trying to take all the credit for yourself. So so then don't I need, don't I need people? Don't I need some other people to take the credit? Maybe I'm missing it. I do not claim to be the smartest human being alive. Maybe I'm missing it. But he does say, he's talking, I think, as he goes on about insecurity. I think that might be, I was confused. I can't say what should have been. I can only speak about me. He was talking about insecurity, and insecure leaders who can't provide security for others because they're not confident in their own leadership capabilities or their own ability to deliver um, on their word. So if you can't deliver on your word and you don't trust yourself to deliver on your word, how can you hold the next man accountable, right? To be faithful to what he says. That's chapter 17. He does have a great daily takeaway on this one. He talks about a French novelist who wrote The Human Comedy. He once observed, quote, nothing is a greater impediment to being on good terms with others than being at ill ease with yourself, right? Nothing can hold you back from making great relationships with other people as much as having a poor relationship with yourself. That's pretty much what he said. Chapter 18. Oh, we coming around that bend, y'all. Chapter 18, self-discipline. The first person you lead is you. The first, two quotes. The first and best victory is to conquer self. That was by Plato, a philosopher. Now, big surprise. This is not John C Maxwell, okay? We got some other people have said words, Second quote, a man without decision of character can never be said to belong to himself. He belongs to whatever can make captive of him. John Foster, who was an author. Whew, that was heavy. I mean, that was heavy, man. I really do enjoy. I talked about the framework, but I don't know that I shared. Like, I enjoy the framework of how he wrote this book. Those two quotes, I like that setup. As you may have picked up on, I don't love that John C. Maxwell is quoting himself 17 times in a 21 chapter book. But I like the framework of having some quotes. They kind of set the tone on what you're getting into. So in this chapter, self-discipline, he talks about Jerry, I think he's talking about Jerry Rice. Yeah, Jerry Rice, and how committed he is. Now, this book is a little bit older, obviously, but he's still talking about professional athletes. And I mean, if you are a sports guy at all, you know who Jerry Rice is. So it's not like I'm talking about some, no name, just pulling out of a hat. But anyway, he talks about his focus, his drive, his passion, his self-discipline, his commitment to excellence. And he talks about some cool frameworks that you can use to challenge yourself. This is one of those chapters where it's a little bit more about a challenge, than just taking on new knowledge. But it is very rewarding. I certainly enjoyed it. He says, sorry, there's a quote in here. Author H. Jackson Brown Jr. says, quote, talent without discipline is like an octopus on roller skates. There's plenty of movement, but you never know if it's going to be forward, backwards, or sideways. End quote. If you know you have talent and you haven't seen a lot of motion, if you know you have talent and you've seen a lot of motion, but little concrete results, you may lack self-discipline. So he does do a good job in this book of really getting in there, talking to you. He's going to talk to you. He's going to say some stuff. Doesn't come across as preachy, but he also doesn't come across as so. I think some people write books from I'm not even here. I just brought you the information. I just no, he said it. That person said that. If you disagree, it's not me. It's not me. I don't enjoy that style too much. I'm like, give me some flavor. Give me your thoughts on it. I want to have that interaction with the author as well. So I do appreciate that. I think the idea with Jerry Rice is that even though he was already the best, he continued to. Yeah, exactly. It was self-discipline rather than any external force. Exactly. I think about Shannon Sharp as well. He's in the media space a little bit more nowadays. for what he's doing, and shout out to him and what he's got going on. But at one point he said, "Yeah, I used to go in my garage and I would like, I just decided today I'm going to burn 4,000 calories, and so that's what I went out and I did. I would turn on the game or whatever, and I would work on the machine or I work on the cardio, and I was just like." Wow, right? Not only the sheer number of calories that you're setting out to do, but just the way that and this goes back to again something I've always looked up to. I am a guy that like needs structure. You give me a syllabus, I will crush it. Give me a doubt, I will prove you wrong, right? But I don't know that I've got I'm going to get up and just go. I'm not coming back in until I burn 4,000 calories myself. I'm not running from nothing. I'm not doing nothing. Again, he is a professional athlete, but it doesn't come across that way. It really comes across like if it gets measured, it gets better. Absolutely. So that self-discipline I think is very, very powerful. I love it. I love, like I said, when I can see it in others. I love when I recognize it in myself. And it is a growing muscle. It kind of, this thought now that I'm having is kind of like when I was talking about generosity. There's different buckets, there's different lanes, there's different relationships that you're in. And so self-discipline may look different. My self-discipline to make me a better employee doesn't really weigh into my task of being a better son or being a better husband or being a better whatever, right? So you can't do this work in these one little areas and feel like it's going to just cascade over. There will be a cumulative benefit, don't get me wrong, but you can't clean one window in your house and be like, all right, the other windows should know, I prefer them to be clean. It doesn't work like that. Chapter 19, servanthood. I literally said this earlier, but maybe subconsciously I knew we were going to get here. I don't know. To stay ahead, put others first. 2 quotes. The true leader serves people, serves their best interest, and in doing so will not always be popular, may not always impress, but because true leaders are motivated by loving concern rather than a desire for personal glory, they are willing to pay the price. Eugene B. Habecker, who is an author. Quote number 2. You've got to love your people more than your position. You know at this point. You know. That second quote, y'all be knowing at this point. I almost started reading. Servanthood. So we talked about this before. It's about not being position conscious, just being a servant, initiating service to others. Not waiting for people to come to you and tell you, what they need from you, but you being able to, with initiative, be generous and be of a servant mindset. Possess the confidence to serve, right? If you feel like, well, I don't want to help them because then people will make fun of me, it's not going to work. So you've got to be willing to have confidence enough to put yourself out there to support others. He's got a few more that are very good. Serve out of love. The daily takeaway is always strong. So that's a really good chapter. I would suggest it. I would suggest the whole book, but I do think servanthood is one of those anchor chapters. I talked about anchor chapters before. Little excerpt. Stop lording over people and start listening to them. Stop role playing for advancement and start risking it for other people's benefit. Stop seeking your own way and start serving others. Teachability, chapter 20. To keep leading, got to keep learning. 2 quotes. Value your listening and reading time at roughly 10 times your talking time. Wow. That will assure you that you are on a course of continuous learning and self-improvement. That was Gerald McGinnis, president and CEO of Respironics Inc. 10 times. I like that. Okay, quote number 2. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. John Wooden, Hall of Fame basketball coach. That's good stuff, man. Teachability, for sure. Again, I love how he structured this book. If you've been reading this long, you might start feeling like you're smart. You might start feeling like you got it all figured out. You might start feeling like whatever. That's the nature of self-help books. You've got to be very careful with them. Self-help books will, I feel, as a person who reads self-help books professionally, I get paid to read self-help books and tell you about them. I'm telling you, there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of telling you what you want to hear. There's a lot of that like comes across as like a challenge, but the challenge is very soft in nature. And by that I mean general, very generalization, but you know, you got to do the hard work to stop and appreciate yourself. You are awesome. You are everything. You are amazing. You've got to just stop and realize that. So you paid this person $20 for their book for them to tell you you don't really need help. You're already perfect the way you are. You don't really need to change anything. You know yourself. You're stressed. Your relationships are tired, strained, tired. You're mental. Whatever's going on with you that made you feel like you needed a self help book, and this person $20 later, 20 of your hard earned dollars later, tells you you really don't need help. You're great the way you are. Can I return the book then? Can I send the book back? You know? Oh no, thank you. Oh my God, this person spent 400 pages telling me that I didn't need to read any self help books. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. These are my personal thoughts. Okay. But he does talk about success disguised as a tramp. You gotta be willing to like get in there, learn, which means admit you don't know, admit you don't know, admit you don't know, right? And I don't know if it was in this book or something else that I was just reading recently, and it was like, nothing that I say today is going to make me smarter, only something that I hear, you know? So we've got to be teachable. You've got, of course, use your discernment, but you've got to be teachable, and you got to be willing to grow and grow and grow. He talks about Chapman. Pretty sure he's talking about Charlie Chaplin. Yep, back in the 1910s and 20s. He was the most famous and recognizable person on the planet. And he gives you some backstory on how that came to pass, you know, how that came to be. Some excerpts: overcome your success, cure your destination disease, or fall in love with the journey is another way to say that. Trade in your pride, swear off shortcuts. These are some others that you know he touches on, and I thought it was a really good chapter. Teachability is something that I always, anytime I'm doing like a job interview, and I, you know, they'll ask like, what skills do you bring to the table? Teachability is always one of those things that I bring up. I want to be teachable also so that I can see what are the most effective ways, you know, that I receive information, that I receive knowledge, so that I can share those same tactics, or so I can implement those same tactics when I'm trying to share knowledge, or share my thoughts, you know, get my point across. Chapter 21. Now, if you know anything about Sly the Deuce, you know Blackjack, 21. You know what I'm saying? It's that same energy, baby. 21. Indispensable Qualities of a Leader by John C Maxwell, or as we've come to know and love him, Johnny Maxwell, right? Two quotes. You know how it goes. 21. Vision. You can seize only what you can see. Well, what does that mean for me? Anyway, quote number 1. A great leader's courage to fulfill his vision comes from passion, not position. That's from John C Maxwell. I'm floored at this point. Oh my God, John C Maxwell put a quote in his own book. Quote number 2. The future belongs to those people who see possibilities before they become obvious. John Scully, former CEO of Pepsi and Apple Computer. Whew. He talks about no chipped paint and all the horses jump. Long story short, Walt Disney was at an amusement park in some of his younger years. He saw how people were having fun. He saw these kids on this like what's the thing with the horses? The merry-go-round. Not the merry-go-round, sorry, the carousel. He saw some kids on that, and as he got closer, he realized like on the outside the horses went up and down, and on the inside they didn't. They just moved. You know, the base itself just moved, and then there were these outer horses that actually moved up and down. He also noticed that like on the outside, the ones that moved up and down, spotless, you know, perfectly clean, brand new paint, nice and shiny. And then the ones that were on the base, or the further you got into the ride, got a little dingy, got a little dusty. They had chip paint. He was like, I'm not having that. He opened his own amusement park, and he was like, all the horses move and no chip paint, right? Everything needs to be absolutely perfect down to the detail. The child whose parent came all the way across the country and spent obs and gobs of money to come to Disneyland, just because they're sitting in this seat doesn't mean that they should have a lessened experience than the child, you know, that experienced it this way. So I thought that was a really cool thing. He talks about inner voice, like voices in your talk track. I'm not going to go too much into it, but he talks about the inner voice, the unhappy voice, the successful voice, and the higher voice. So, he breaks it down in a way that is very, very easy to understand, but he does talk about, vision. You've got to be able to see it. If you can see it, you can achieve it. Bro, he says measure yourself. You just talked about if it can be measured, it can be improved upon, or whatever the phrase was. I know that I messed it up, but I didn't do that maliciously. Charge it to my head, not my heart. But yeah, I thought it was a good book. I certainly didn't agree with every single word that was written in it, but that's not the point in reading. The point in reading is to entertain new ideas, be exposed to new, thought patterns, and hopefully pick something up. Maybe put something down, in your mental space. Maybe you let go of a notion. Maybe you stop thinking away. So I hope that this has been helpful. I know that it has been helpful to someone. I hope that someone is you, right? But I certainly appreciate you, everybody that followed or hit the like button or interacted. That means more to me than you know. Um, I truly do mean it when I say you could be anywhere in the world right now and you're here with me. That does mean a lot. I appreciate y'all. It has been, did we make 2 hours? We made 2 hours. We're official. That was my own little private goal. I didn't want to just pontificate and, blow hard for no reason, but I also wanted to make sure I was really committing to having a real, analysis, a real sharing of my thoughts and really fleshing it out, not feeling rushed, not feeling pressured to be more, be anything other than myself. And I stumbled upon, the absolute best crowd I could get. So I certainly do appreciate that. I am going to go log off, be a human being in the real world. And I will catch y'all on the next one. Peace. Give me a few minutes. I'm going to do the social media thing. This is YouTube. This will be the home. This will be the house. This will be the foundation of this channel and where this goes. But I will upload this onto TikTok. I'll make some clips, put them up on different reels and stuff like that so you can share those with other people who may want to check them out. They may have an opinion. And as always, I need book suggestions. So, feed me, feed me, feed me. I appreciate y'all. Be easy. Peace.